circle bright, weave your web of dark and light, earth, air, fire.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm your Monday hostess, Natalie. This is week 18 of season 13, and we are going to be discussing managing hostility from family members, coworkers, neighbors, etc. this week. Now, this is a topic that we have talked about in the past in some form or other. Usually it's, being magical in the workplace or something along those lines, but due to 2,000 years of persecution, you're going to come across some people that heavily disagree with your religion or lifestyle, or however you want to phrase it. To me, it is a religion. And in the past, I've told you all that I define religion as the set of principles that guide your everyday decision making and morals. And so therefore, witchcraft is my religion. And I do work with a god and a goddess, so that's my personal view. Some people don't see witchcraft as a religion, they see it as a lifestyle. Either way, it boils down to the same thing. So, eventually you're going to encounter some sort of hostility, whether it be from people that just don't like what you're doing, or they disagree with you and they feel like they need to proselytize to you. So here are some things that I do to manage that. Many of you know that my husband, especially in the middle part of my transition to coming out of the broom closet, was very hostile. He was very supportive at first. He thought it was kind of cute. And, oh, she thinks she's a witch. And then as I became more advanced in my practice and incorporated aspects of my practice into my day-to-day life, he began to get very hostile towards it. Now there's beginning to be a shift. He's telling me, like over the weekend, he told me that he wanted to be more of a part of something bigger than himself. And he sees appeal in what I'm doing and wants to practice with me. So that was a huge step for my cradle Catholic husband. But he's been very disenchanted with the Catholic Church for many, many years. In fact, I would say most of his life. It's that many of you know that when you are raised, especially in a faith like the Catholic faith or in the Church of Christ like I was, it's a programming, right? It's a programming. They train you out of fear, because if you don't believe this, you can't get to heaven. There's only one way to God. It's through Christ. If you don't believe him, you're going to hell. That kind of thing. You all understand. We've talked about that before in the past. So how do you manage this? How do you deal with this? I have a couple of different ways of dealing with it, depending on who it is that I'm dealing with it from. First of all, I'm not closed about my practice. I'm very open about who I am typically, but I also own a business, and I have to be conscious of the fact that I live in the Bible Belt, and it could negatively impact my business if people knew I was a practicing witch. I am a member of the OBOD, so when people that I think may be extremely hostile, that are looking to me professionally, ask about my religious beliefs, I will just phrase it in a different way. I just say that I'm a believer in the magic of the universe and in the power of the universe, and I believe in God, but I don't think he's a single parent. So often that prompts questions, and I have found that people are often hostile when they have a negative impression of what you do. And we can blame, like I said, we could place blame in a lot of different places. Monotheism began with Zoroaster. It's continued with, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and a lot of other just like little sects of those religions. And so they're very negative to the idea of female empowerment. Wives, subject yourselves to your husbands. Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, obviously, when you're in a partnership, there's certain things that you just say it's not worth battling with you over because I have to live with you. But at the same time, I'm not one to back down from my beliefs. You can yarp at me and yarp at me, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. I might bitch about you a whole lot during the process, but I'm going to keep doing what I do because that's what I do. It's my passive aggressive way of fighting back. But I find that educating people, finding a way that sounds less harmful to them and allowing them to ask questions and educating them really helps. It helps a lot because it forces them to look at it from a different viewpoint. Now, you're going to have people that are just going to be negative to you no matter what you tell them, no matter how kind you are to them, no matter what nice things you do charity-wise within the community, no matter how much you give back to the community, they are going to see you as evil. And you'll often see these trolls leaving comments on our YouTube channels and sending us nasty emails about how we're going to hell and, we better repent now of our sins and, all of this. So you're going to come across that. The only thing you can do with that is just cut it off. Sometimes that's what you need to do. Now, in terms of family therapy, cut off, as we call it, is very negative in nature, really. It tends to be very harmful for the next generations. However, you sometimes need to do this for your own sanity. Snip those toxic people out of your life. And sometimes that means making very tough decisions regarding family. If they can't agree with you and they can't leave you alone and respect you enough to understand that if you are a good person, you're not going to willingly do something that is negative, then you need to snip. Plain and simple. If it's a coworker, just move them out of the way. Talk to your boss and say, hey, look, my religious practices are my own. I express my religion no differently than anyone else that's here, but my decision making is my decision making, and you can see that I'm a competent employee. So can I please be moved to another area where I will not be harassed by this person? Because what you have to remember is that Wicca, not that, you may not be Wiccan, but in terms of Wicca is a recognized religion in the United States, and therefore it is protected by federal law. They cannot persecute you or prosecute you or act against you on the basis of your religious faith. We have a constitutional right in this country to practice our religion and pursue our happiness. And until that changes, which hopefully it never will, we have a right to continue to practice as we see fit. So please be vocal in terms of defending your faith. If somebody complains that you've got your statue of the goddess hanging on your computer, which I have my little one here, that I keep, my little goddess, bone goddess here. I keep that on my computer. Of course, I own my own business, so for me, it's a little bit different. I practice my faith. My assistant is a Seventh-day Adventist. She does her faith. She knows who I am. We just don't discuss it very often. It just doesn't come up in conversation. She knows I'm a good person. I know she's a good person, and we just let it go. She did give me the most adorable purple mug, like big coffee thing that says, it has a little witch on it that she made with her little, what do you call those? She's got one of those die cut kind of machines that cuts like leather and wood, and you can paste it on there and do all kinds of neat little things. But she made me a little one that's got a little witch on it holding a broom. It says, we have ways of making you talk. I thought that was cute. So, but she's relatively supportive. She understands that our religions are different, but, when it comes to hostility from friends, if your friends cannot see past your faith, they are not your friends. Remember the old adage your mom used to tell you, if your friends make fun of you for your clothes, they're not your friends. Well, Mom had a point. And although you didn't want to hear it as a kid because you wanted those Guess jeans that everybody else was wearing, or back in my day, the Jordache jeans or the Z Cavaricis that looked ridiculous, but everybody else was wearing them, so you wanted them, sort of like the MC Hammer pants. She had a point. I mean, if people cannot accept you for who you are, then they're not your friends. So again, just move away. You don't have to be full on hostile back. And I would never recommend that you are, because all that does is justify their viewpoint or amp them up and give them more ammo. When people are being negative to you, the best thing you can do is ignore them. It's a behavioral management strategy that we use called extinction. You respond to the positive, you completely ignore the negative, because typically what they're trying to do is get a response from you. So any response you give them, particularly if it's argumentative and negative back, gives them all the ammo they need to go forward and just keep on, keep on, keep on. So talking to your boss about your ability to practice your faith in your private life and have mementos, and I will often point out to people, well, does your coworker wear a cross or have any kind of little, Jesus loves you sort of thing hanging on the wall? And sometimes they'll go, well, yes. Well, then there you go. Then you should be able to have your evil eye there to protect you. You should be able to have your statue of the goddess, your figurine of the goddess sitting there. That is your religious right. And if they start to make a problem with it, then you simply point out and take pictures. Take pictures of people's cubicles or offices where you see these things so that you can present that to your boss and say, well, look at so-and-so. They have their religion in their workspace. Like it or not, your moral beliefs are a part of who you are. They are in your fiber. That's why I don't have a problem with other people expressing their faith. And if they happen to say something that could be perceived negative towards my religion, like for example, I have a patient right now, and I had all of my little, Samhain accoutrements on, and she said, oh, we don't know. Your earrings are cute, but we don't typically celebrate Halloween because that's the devil's holiday. And I just smiled and said, well, some people see it that way, and I let it go. I didn't bring it up. I try not to discuss my religion in the workplace at all. Again, because I own a business and I have to be mindful of that. So for me, it's a little bit different. If you're working in a workspace, then you just manage it how you need to. Ignore the negative behavior, ignore the snide comments. Try not to get the dig in now and then, even if you think of a good zinger. Every now and then I'll out with something, because if somebody's just being ridiculous, I'll just confront them on it. I'll just say, look, your religion is your religion. My religion is mine. My beliefs are my beliefs. Your beliefs are your beliefs. You don't have to even take it into the religion, but in the workplace, you might want to bring that up, because then you can say, I don't need to be in a hostile working environment. That's a trigger phrase. That will scare the people out of your boss. Now, that could go two ways. Just keep that in mind. But if you state that to your other coworker, look, I'm not creating a negative workspace for you. Please don't create a negative work environment for me. Hostile work environment. Because that's going to panic somebody. So that could go either way. You want to be careful with that. But if you feel your boss is receptive to you, then that might be something you can throw out there to your coworker about, look, I'm not trying to create a negative or hostile work environment for you. I don't discuss it. I have my things just as you have your things. We live in a free country. Now, when it comes to neighbors, here's where you might experience the most difficulty with this topic, because if you've ever watched the ID channel, you can see how crazy some neighbors can get. You can't control with great extent who you live next to. You can't control who buys a house next to you, who really lives in your neighborhood, unless you move out of that neighborhood. But why should you have to move out because your neighbors don't agree with your beliefs? Again, it goes back to, you have a right to live as you believe and express your beliefs, as long as you are not harming or infringing on someone else. Same goes for them. When they began to make you feel like you are being persecuted, they are now stepping over that bound and creating a hostile environment. And again, that would be something where a lot of people will put these, he is risen signs in their yard around Easter, or, they might have their Christmas decorations out, and they might be very religiously based, and maybe you celebrate Yule, so you'll put out Good Yule or Merry Kwanzaa or whatever you want to put out there. When your neighbors become hostile, here's what I would say to you. If you have an HOA, make sure that you know the rules of your HOA in terms of what you can have on your lawn and what you cannot. Because your HOA, especially in Texas, many of you may not be aware of this, but an HOA in Texas can take your home away from you. Yes, they can. If you are not following the bylaws of the HOA, which you agree to when you move into the neighborhood and start paying dues to your HOA, which if you don't pay dues to your HOA and you live in an HOA governed neighborhood, they can take your house away from you. Yes, they can. In Texas. Now, I don't know how it is in other states. I'm sorry. The hydraulics in my chair are going down. I think it's just because I'm fat. So my chair keeps sinking and it's driving me nuts. Okay, so here's what you do. You find out who the people are, if you can, and you might need to install cameras. If you have a Ring doorbell, that would be very useful, but I know a lot of people are kind of sketchy about the whole Ring network, and I understand that. So just get a simple camera. You can get an inexpensive camera and put it towards your yard where it kind of faces your yard and your front door catches as much of your yard. You may need to. They're very inexpensive, and you can get the ones that will record on your phone with an app or that can record on a device within your home. So what I would recommend is that you get whatever evidence you can of the persecution, if they're damaging your property, if they're doing anything like this. And, you know, I don't see a lot of adults doing this, but you might see some adults that are kind of, you know, freaky. But, you know, if they're sending you notes or letters, just gather all of your information that you can and take it to your HOA and say, hey, look, my religious views are my religious views. I have a legal right to practice my religion as I see fit. It is protected by the Constitution of the United States. And as a governing body, it is your job to protect me as a member of this neighborhood. So you need to put a stop to this behavior. You would be surprised how effective that is. Now, what I have been getting here lately, and I should have brought it with me, but I found out that I'm not the only one that's getting these. I thought maybe I was starting to get them because I have a white sticker on my white vehicle, but when the light hits it, you can see it, and it's the triple moon with a pentacle in the center, and then I have a little witch on the other side. Again, I'm not quite about who I am, but, you know, I just remain friendly to all of my neighbors. You know, I say hello, I greet my neighbors, I talk to them with the same respect I expect to be treated with. And for the most part, that's what I get back. My neighbor next door over here, we've lived next to him since we moved into this neighborhood. The people over here have lived here for a couple of years. She's on my Facebook. She knows who I am. Doesn't have a problem. The people that just moved in across the street, they're, you know, friendly. I mean, they've done a couple of boneheaded things like park in the middle of the street where we can't get around or get out of our driveway. And I've had to, you know, politely ask them to please park on the main road because it's much wider. But that's a problem with that house all the time, no matter who lived there. You know, they just don't think. Our kids always park on the main road. So anyway, you know, it's one of those things where you just have to take the higher road most frequently. But don't back down. Don't, you know, take down your things or hide things because you're feeling like you're being persecuted. But you do want to make sure that you are operating within the law as well. And I would never recommend that you answer hostility with hostility. You know, when someone is in your face, it's very easy to feel your emotions rise. You need to rise above those emotions and remain calm at all times. Do not raise your voice. Do not cuss. Do not yell. Simply say, your beliefs are your beliefs, and you have a right to practice your beliefs. But we live in the United States of America, where last time I checked, I have a constitutional right to have my beliefs, and you do not have a right to infringe upon that. If you choose to continue to do so, then I will need to either stop speaking with you, or I will have to take legal action to protect myself. A lot of times that's enough to just make people step back. Now, your family are the ties that bind and gag. So it might be kind of hard to avoid Aunt Martha at that Christmas dinner that your family always has. And so sometimes you will just have to just act like Aunt Martha doesn't exist. And that is what I would recommend. Whatever dig she says, don't get emotional. If other people start to get emotional, just smile and say, it's okay. It doesn't matter what she says. And just keep going, you know, honestly. Now, if you're like me and you have a really bad temper and it's hard for you to, because you've been bullied a lot of your life and you feel you need to stand up for yourself, I would definitely recommend that you don't do what I do, which is be passive aggressive and start sticking more stuff out there. I do that. You know, sometimes that can backfire too. You know, when you start sticking things up in your yard, like, you know, now it doesn't matter. You know, you just have to learn to not allow them to control you emotionally. And that is the key to this video right here. I probably should just say that at the beginning and made this a whole lot shorter. But I like to talk, obviously. So I'm a woman in a speech path. That's what I do. But seriously, you need to just always maintain the upper hand by maintaining and controlling your emotions. People tend to get highly emotional about their beliefs. They dig in really hard and they will amp it up with emotion. And you, if you can remain calm, will always have that upper hand and just say, look, you know what? You have a right to believe what you want to believe. You've known me for however long, or you don't know me at all. Why don't you get to know me before you judge me based on what you think you know about my beliefs? Why don't you ask me questions and let's have a real adult dialogue? I have found that that often diffuses a lot of conversations. And there are some people that you just have to say, you know what, we're going to have to agree to disagree and not discuss it, or we're just not going to have to talk. And I have done that. I have snippied quite a few people out of my life. And you have to be able and be prepared to do that if you're going to walk the walk and talk the talk and stir that cauldron. So, the long and short of it is managing hostility comes from within. It comes from knowing that you are confident and being confident in the fact that you can believe what you wish to believe and what calls to you and what is in your heart. And that if you truly are walking the walk and you do believe it, others' hostility and opinions are not going to matter to you. So unless it's infringing upon you in the form of persecution coming from family, friends, or neighbors, you need to be prepared to take the kinds of actions that you may need to take, such as cutoff or legal action, in order to protect your rights. And that the best way to do it is to do it that channel and not engage directly. Okay? Unless they're willing to have an adult conversation with you. If it starts to get hostile, personal, and highly negative, walk away. The best thing you can do is just say, you know what, we're done here. I'm not discussing this with you any further. I've put my points out there. Obviously, it's not going to convince you. And that's fine. I'm not here to convince you. And I don't have to be proselytized at. So just getting up and walking away is sometimes what you need to do. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. I hope you had a blessed Samhain. I hope that it was everything that you would want it to be. And as we move into the dark half of the year and the new year itself, I hope that you are letting go of all that no longer serves you, even if that includes hostile neighbors, coworkers, friends, and family. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of Witches of the Moon. I do hope that you all will begin to leave comments or send us an email. You can email us at witchesofthemoon1@gmail.com and give us your topic suggestions for this next season as we are starting to pull that together. Thank you so much and blessed be.